I'm Corbett Wall with USDA Livestock and Grain Market News, here with your weekly feeder and stocker cattle market summary for the week ending June the 14th, where we had another good test of yearling feeder cattle selling firm to $3 higher. Your calves down in the southeast, where we got the best test of calves selling right now, they were steady to $3 lower. Just not a lot of outside orders coming in right now. Other parts of the country where lighter calves were offered, prices were mostly steady but in a light test. You know, most of your producers are busy putting up hay right now, and it's just not a lot of calves moving, and most of your guys that buy calves to turn out have already got those calves turned out, so just not a lot of activity in the calf trade right now. You know, where moisture is available, you know, from central Texas all the way to the Canadian border and moving east, got ample moisture in almost all of those areas, and guys are really putting up a lot of hay, and they've got a new respect for the hay bales that they're putting up after getting as short of hay as they have in different spots the last 2 or 3 years. But heavy yearling feeder cattle weighing over 800 pounds dominated receipts again this week. Still seeing a lot of big strings of heavy yearlings coming, especially in the southern plains down in southwest Oklahoma, where they're still under drought, and on in the southwest. The whole drought's still going on in New Mexico, Texas Panhandle, southeastern Colorado, Oklahoma Panhandle. It's still just as dry there or worse than it's ever been. But down in the southern plains, we're seeing a lot of those big yearlings moving, and seems like guys have just held on to those cattle even though they've had to supplementally feed them either on graze out wheat or maybe even a growing yard or something, but they just kept holding those cattle thinking that they were going to get a better market for them, and they have gotten a better market here in the last few weeks. And if they held those cattle this long, we're seeing prices $3 to $7 higher for big yearlings, even though the runs have been really good for them the last 2 or 3 weeks. Your most advance has been seen in the northern plains, where big yearling feeder cattle are running really short in the northern plains, like in Iowa and Nebraska and northern Kansas, northern Missouri, and going up into South Dakota and places like that, where the runs have really trickled down to nothing. So a lot of those order buyers are either having to travel down south to try to buy some big yearlings, or else they're sending the orders down there to a reputable order buyer. But this time of year, it's not that bad. They don't need a lot of hair on those cattle because they're going into the hot months of the year, and if those cattle are crossed up and don't have a lot of hair, it's not a big problem. But we wouldn't see that happening if we were in the fall of the year. But you know, the runs are just real light in the northern plains, and even the specials that are coming up, the midsummer yearling specials, like in Bassett, Nebraska, they usually have a July barbecue special there. It's always a 2-dayer, and they have a lot of the highest prices on yearlings that we ever see. This year they're holding that sale 2 to 3 weeks earlier, and just going to be a 1-day sale. That goes to show you they've saved a lot of that grass out there to try to hold on to those cow herds, and not going to be as many big grass yearlings coming off in that part of the country as normal. But your CME feeder contracts are still running at a huge premium to cash levels right now. The next closest CME feeder contract is August. It's running at over a $7 premium to the index, even though the board was down hard on Friday. But your current CME index cash price is just over $136. And September-October feeder contracts are running at a $10 to $12 premium to that. So those are either going to come together, or cash has got to run, or something's going to happen in the next 30 to 45 days. But you know, we think that yearlings are going to be really tight late this summer and early in the fall. We cried wolf on this before. We kept thinking that our numbers are going to run out and the cattle just keep coming, but sure don't seem to be out there this time, and these feedlots want to be prepared for that. That's why they're going ahead and buying these big yearlings while they're available. Had a good run in Oklahoma City this week, 11,500 head on Monday, and you got to think some of those cattle might have gone to El Reno if they hadn't been closed for the tornado. But a big sale in Oklahoma City on Monday. Had over 600 head in the number one steer column on 8 to 850 pound steers, averaging 824 at 134.95. and that's an awful good market when you think just a couple of weeks ago it was really tough to get 130 for an 800-pound steer. But Oklahoma City is still the nation's stocker and feeder cattle market. It's amazing that sitting where Oklahoma National Stockyards do, that they can still get the big runs that they get. And you think about this week, that amounts to over 200 truckloads of cattle that made their way into the old stockyards at in Oklahoma City. And the road construction and the urban sprawl in that part of town is huge, and they still get those cattle in there. They've got a lot of support from the big volume corporate feeders, and it's still the nation's feeder cattle market, and that's all you can say about it. But those of you interested in the LMA's World Champion Livestock Auctioneer Contest, that's going to be on TV this Saturday on RFD Network, and it'll be interesting to see who wins that. This week's regional weighted averages in the north central states, 800 to 900 pound steer cost you $136.21 compared to $131.96 last week and $149.61 a year ago. Down in the south central part of the United States, 700 to 800 pound steer, $135.71 compared to $134.20 last week and $154.41 a year ago. And down in the southeastern part of the state, 5-weight steer cost you $137.73 compared to $139.99 last week and $164.10 a year ago. Fats were $2 lower again this week, mostly in 120 in the southern plains and early sales at 121 in the northern plains. And that wraps up your feeder stocker summary for this week. Check out our website for more market information at marketnews.usda.gov. And from the Regional Market News Office in St. Joe, Missouri, we'll talk to you next week.